Shalom and good evening. This is TV7 Israel News broadcasting to you from Jerusalem. And in today's headlines, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu continues ongoing efforts to form a government coalition. Qatar announces it will loan the Palestinian Authority some $100 million to help pay the civil servant salaries and alleviate the Palestinians' economic crisis. The Palestine Liberation Organization announces its militias in Syria are coordinating with the Syrian government an offensive against the Islamic State of Iraq and Levant. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu convened yesterday senior members of his Likud party to discuss advancing the ongoing coalition talks as the Israeli leader tries to form a new government. Netanyahu has been holding such meetings every few days in an effort to push forward the stalled talks with various other parties. Senior officials from Netanyahu's Likud faction warned that the prime minister must take bold decisions by the beginning of next week, or else the negotiations would reach an impasse. The far-reaching demands of the Kulanu and Habayit Yehudi factions are the issue at hand, and sources in Likud say that neither is currently prepared to be more flexible due to their assessment that Netanyahu cannot build a coalition without them. Meanwhile, Netanyahu's negotiating team sent a clear warning to those parties, stressing that they will check alternatives if any of the factions raise difficulties beyond what is expected, hinting that the ruling Likud, which won 30 seats in the Knesset, will have no choice but to try and form a unity coalition with the center-left Zionist Union. Nonetheless, such a scenario is considered highly unlikely, and sources close to Benjamin Netanyahu believe that the so-called natural partners of the Likud faction will eventually compromise on the disagreements. In other news, Israel's decision to release some of the frozen tax revenue it collects on behalf of the Palestinian Authority, minus a portion of cash which it said the Palestinians owed for utilities and healthcare supplied by the Jewish state, following which the Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas refused to accept any of the money unless Israel transfers the amount in full. The Palestinian Authority announced it had received a $100 million loan from Qatar to help pay the civil servant salaries and alleviate the Palestinian economic crisis. President Abbas, who is visiting the Gulf state, issued a statement thanking Qatar, a country that supports the Islamist Hamas, which controls the Gaza Strip and is the rival of Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas. Referring to Israel's decision to use a portion of the tax revenues it withheld from the Palestinians in response to their unilateral moves to join international organizations, including the International Criminal Court in The Hague, President Abbas threatened the Jewish state that the Palestinian Authority will go to the International Criminal Court on the matter if the total sum of money was not transferred. An official at Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's office confirmed that Israel had deducted money to cover the Palestinians' electricity, water, and health bills and was willing to transfer back to the Palestinian Authority the sum that was returned whenever it wishes. Now to Israel's northern neighbor. The Palestinian envoy to Syria announced the PLO's support for the Syrian army's offensive to regain control of the war-battered Yarmouk camp on the outer skirts of Damascus that has fallen into the hands of the Islamic State of Iraq and Levant. The radical Islamist group, which rules large swaths of land in Syria and Iraq, seized almost all of the Palestinian refugee camp in recent days, brushing aside local militia that fought Syrian President Bashar Assad.
لغاية أمس أستطيع القول أن أكثر من 35% من مساحة المخيم الكلية هي الآن تحت سيطرة الدولة السورية وأيضا اللجان الشعبية الفلسطينية.
The sprawling Yarmouk was home to some 160,000 Palestinians before the Syrian conflict began in 2011. According to the Palestinian official, there were just 17,500 residents left, with around 2,000 evacuated since the latest round of fighting. The Syrian Observatory for Human Rights, which monitors the conflict from Britain, earlier said that ISIL controlled 90% of the camp after defeating fighters, mainly from Aknaf Beit al-Maqdis, which is a Palestinian militia group opposed to Assad. The Islamic State of Iraq and Levant, the most powerful insurgent group in Syria, is now only a few kilometers from Assad's seat of power in the heart of Damascus. The decision by the Palestine Liberation Organization, which is headed by Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas, to support the Syrian government adds new allies to the Syrian regime in the bloody conflict, which according to the United Nations claimed the lives of more than 200,000 people. The Palestinian official echoed the Syrian government line that the only way to rid the Palestinian camp of the ultra-radical Sunni Muslim fighters was through force.
يجري العمل بشكل مشترك، وأمس كان في هناك اجتماع لفصائل العمل الوطني الفلسطيني، وتم التوافق على أن يكون هذا الاجتماع مفتوحاً كقيادة سياسية متواجدة على الأراضي السورية للتنسيق والتشاور الدائم مع القيادة السورية. وأيضاً اتفق على أن تشكل غرفة عمليات مشتركة من القوات السورية ومن الفصائل الفلسطينية التي ترغب أو التي لها وجود عسكري ملموس داخل المخيم أو في محيطه لاستكمال هذه العملية النظيفة عسكريا التي تحدثت عنها قبل قليل.
Meanwhile, United Nations Secretary General Ban Ki-moon described last night the refugee camp as a death camp.
The Yarmouk refugee camp is a deepest circle of hell. After more than 2 years of merciless siege, 18,000 Palestinian refugees and Syrians are now being held hostage by Daesh and other extremist militants. A refugee camp is beginning to resemble a death camp. The residents of Yarmouk, including 3,500 children, are being turned into human shields. They face a double-edged sword, armed elements inside the camp, and government forces outside. We are now hearing worrying reports of a massive assault on the camp and all civilians in it. This would be yet one more outrageous war crime for which those responsible must be held accountable.
Now to the ongoing fighting in Yemen. The Saudi-led military coalition leading aerial strikes against Iranian-backed Houthi militias and their allies said they were trying to help aid agencies in their efforts to provide needed relief to Yemenis affected by the conflict. Shipping sources said, however, that the Saudis had blocked a vessel carrying more than 47,000 tons of wheat from entering a Yemeni port, demanding United Nations guarantees that the cargo would not go to military personnel. The Saudi military spokesman said in response that the security situation did not permit the cargo to reach its destination safely.
They are stuck now in the port because of the security situation around the port. They cannot get to the city. We are in coordination actually with the group inside the city to provide them the maximum of help to make sure that those medical support and medical equipment could reach the hospitals inside Aden.
Iran's leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei condemned as genocide the military intervention by its main regional rival Saudi Arabia and Yemen, escalating Tehran's rhetoric against the 2-week-old airstrike campaign. The Iranian supreme leader said that Saudi Arabia would not emerge victorious from the war in Yemen, where the Iran-allied Houthi fighters who control the capital Sana'a have been trying to seize the southern city of Aden from local militias. Thank you for watching us. I'm Jonathan Hassan. Have a Erev Tov, Shabbat Shalom and Chag Sameach, and we will see you again on Monday at the same time.